Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host, coming to you from the BNN Live studios, Eggleston Square, Jamaica Plain, where tonight on the Boston Neighborhood Network, we continue our coverage of election 2013 with another of the mayoral candidates in this fall's municipal election. As you know, 12 candidates in all have qualified for the ballot, and as we get into the dog days of summer, the campaigns are starting to heat up, and tonight you'll meet the former executive director of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, well-educated, well-known in his neighborhood, and becoming more well-known across the city. John Barros joins us, and we'll find out what got him into this race and what he'll do if he becomes Boston's next mayor. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host. Tonight, we continue our election 2013 coverage. This fall's election's shaping up to be a real barn burner. Of course, 12 candidates made the ballot for mayor and over 20 for the 4 at-large council seats. Talk about district races, several candidates there as well. And here on Talk of the Neighborhoods, BNN, we're bringing you coverage of them all, but especially the mayor's race. And tonight, I'm very pleased to have joining me a gentleman who's earned a reputation in his own neighborhood with his efforts for the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, making great progress there, as anyone who's visited that area can attest to. He decided to throw his hat in the ring for mayor and has qualified for the ballot. I'm talking, of course, about John Barros. And John, nice to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, you know, even for a man like yourself who's accomplished, and I think probably a lot of people don't really know the kinds of things that you were able to do in Dudley Square and your own background as a businessman as well. But this is a big step. And what made you decide to kind of take that risk, take that shot, so to speak, at running for mayor?
It is a big step. It's a big step for all of us, all 12 of us. And in fact, you know, I never thought about it, but I've almost been preparing for this for a very long time. I've been working in Boston for a very long time, working obviously in the Dudley neighborhood.
And I know you started as a young, very young man.
Started at the age of 14 as a volunteer, and neighborhood cleanup was the way I got in. And it was really important for me to feel ownership of my neighborhood, feel that I can make a difference. And then I joined the board at the age of 17, and started a youth movement, investing in youth voice. Became executive director at the age of 26. Had just become 26 years old. Worked in the corporate world for a number of years, and then returned at the age of 26 to lead the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. I've been there for 13 years. And we've been improving the lives of people in that area of Boston. And I'm really excited to become mayor and improve the lives of people throughout Boston.
Well, you know, on paper, you know, and I know you're much more than about a lot more things than being a person of color. But as a person of color, on paper, given the fact that Boston is the so-called majority-minority city now, you should be at an advantage, though you do have several colleagues that are also in that position. How much of a factor was that in deciding? Because we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about it here, about the new Boston, and of course, since then, Deval Patrick got elected governor, and of course, Barack Obama got elected president. Yet, we've never had a person of color, African American, elected as mayor of the city of Boston. How much was that as an incentive or a factor in you deciding to get into the race?
I tell you, if you make your decision to run for mayor just because you're a person of color, you won't last. This needs to be something that you feel right here. It needs to be something you're passionate about, that you're really committed to be in a position where you're a public servant 24 hours a day, where you're going into the public arena and making yourself available for all that Boston needs, where your family is making that investment with you. So being a person of color allows me to play a certain role, maybe represent a certain progress, but that's not why you run. You run because you love this city. You run because you're committed. You run because you really think you can make a change, and you think you can actually make Boston even better.
Though you would, if you were elected, you'd be the first of course, in addition to be a first mayor of color, the first Cape Verdean descendant that was elected to high office in the city of Boston. That's been a growing population, and many people think maybe one of the most underserved populations in the city. And how does that factor in? Does it, I'm sure you've got a lot of pride in your roots, and do you get a big response from others that are Cape Verdean?
The Cape Verde community is very excited. I look forward to serving them, but serving all of Boston, right? And I remember when Menina was first elected, the first Italian mayor of Italian heritage. Yeah. It was a big deal for the Italians in Boston. It was a sense of Boston growing. There was a sense of Boston being more tolerant and accepting of others. And I think, for the Cape Verdean community, it might be an opportunity to grow into Boston in a different way, and I think I'd be very proud of that, and they'd be very proud. But the first and most important thing for me is making sure that I represent all of Boston, and that they know that I'm not running to represent the Cape Verdean community. That'd be foolish. Move back to Cape Verde and maybe run for government there. But I'm running to represent all of Boston, and proud of my heritage, and proud to bring that as part of who I am in this package. But look forward to representing the Italians. Look forward to representing the Irish. Look forward to representing the, all of the different groups in Boston. And I've worked hard to build those relationships. I've worked hard to connect to those communities, and I believe those communities feel that I can represent them.
Well, and again, for those of you just joining us, John Barros is here on set with us. He is one of the candidates running for mayor of the city of Boston, one of 12, and within your own neighborhood, you've made great strides. And tell us what you've taken out of that experience that you'd like to apply towards the city of Boston when you become elected.
Well, one of the more important things about the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative is that our board of directors is a very diverse board. We make sure to have seats for all the diverse ethnic groups in the neighborhood. We also make sure to have seats for young residents under the age of 18. And so participation and inclusion is a very, very important part of my history and my leadership at the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. And that's what I'm running for as City of Boston, to make this a more inclusive and participatory city. I think if we can build on the human resources of the residents of Boston, allow people to participate more, allow people to take a part of more in opportunities that we would get more out of the city. For example, we've done a lot of work in the neighborhood around improving education opportunities for the youth of our neighborhood through our Promise Neighborhoods initiative. And I think as mayor, I would ensure that all of Boston's children have a quality seat available to them. And taking the work that we've done in the neighborhood that's proven to turn around schools like the Orchard Garden Pilot School, to start new innovative schools like the Dudley Street Neighborhood In-District Charter School, is the kind of innovation and success that I would bring to the city platform and try to do for all the children of Boston.
There was a very interesting, it was an op-ed piece actually written by Michael Jonas, who's the executive editor of Commonwealth Magazine, ran in the Globe recently, talking about the Forward Boston Coalition, and included a number of leaders, educational institutions, and really across the city, including Boston Foundation people, suggesting that perhaps this year at least, that education reform could truly be a driving issue in this race. It's been talked about so many years, but it hasn't necessarily come to pass. It's there's always been a feeling that parents will kind of rise up and say, all right, we want somebody that really takes this serious. Now, you were an appointed member of the school committee until recently. Satisfied with the schools? Where do we go from here? Is it a defining issue in this race, in your opinion?
Education is a critical issue in this race, and I think I can say it's the question I'm asked the most. It's the question of what would I do for education in Boston? How do I plan to improve it? And I think in many ways then it is a defining issue. It's not the only issue, but it's a very important issue. But it's also an issue that connects to all the other issues. Education connects to our economy, it connects to safety, it connects to health. And so it really is an important point of entry into Boston's quality of life and making the city a better place. So I'm really honored to have been working on the issue of education for most of my professional life, honored to have served on the school committee with Mayor Menino. We've got a lot of work to do. We're not there yet. We're not the city we can be in terms of education. And we can't tolerate schools that are not performing. We have to give them the resources and the autonomies that they need to become better.
Were you satisfied with the work of Superintendent Johnson? Of course, she's just now has announced her resignation, and there's going to be an interim superintendent, apparently. But she attempted to make a sea change of sorts in the culture of the Boston schools, not always successfully, because it's a sea that's filled with some sharks, and there was a lot of criticism of her, and some of it perhaps justified. Were you satisfied with the work that she's done? What would you like to see the next superintendent do differently?
I think the next superintendent can build on successes of Dr. Carol Johnson. She drove down the dropout rate. She improved the percentage of kids that were getting arts. She led a successful process to get us to a new assignment process. We've been working on that for years. There's a lot that she's done.
Did you support that, the new assignment process? Were you?
On record, I supported it. I also voted against it because I was trying to tweak it. And so it's the right direction, it's the right assignment process, but I think we still have some work that's left undone. And for those who are paying attention to the assignment process, there's some equity issues that I've put out there that I think we need to address. Namely, the assignment process calls on choices and options being given to parents according to school buildings, where I thought the most equitable way to distribute opportunities for parents and students would be to base them on seats available. And, it's something that as mayor, I'd work with the stakeholders in the External Advisory Committee, bring them back on board, because I think we need to have this conversation ongoing, and then continue to look at this on a periodic basis to see the impact that it's having on our Boston schools and Boston school children.
But in principle, did you think the assignment process needed to be changed?
Absolutely. Thought the assignment process needed to be changed, and once again, I think this is the right direction. I put forth a number of public amendments to the assignment process because I think it could be improved. But Dr. Johnson did a good job of taking us through that process. The External Advisory Committee, that process was the right process. As mayor, I would open up the school committee process to those kind of processes. The school committee should have standing subcommittees. There should be a way for more stakeholders to engage and for us to inform parents and parents to inform us on these questions ongoing. The school committee right now runs a business meeting where we're tackling large issues in short time frames. And we need to have a standing committee for something like the school assignment process so that you can look at quality, you can look at the impact. We need to have a standing committee on the budget so that's reviewed and we can and people can stay with us on the budget. We need to have a standing committee on important policies. Eliminating the achievement gap is something that we've said is very important to the city. Right. And so why not have a standing committee and a number of stakeholders that are helping us have the conversations, monitoring the policies and our implementation of the policies. We need to open up the participation on the school committee, and it starts with standing subcommittees.
Now, there's some people that have suggested we should go back to an elected school committee. You served as an appointed member. Is that something you'd consider? Is that?
I agree with the sentiment that the school committee is not open enough, which is why I just proposed structural changes to how we engage people. I agree with the sentiments that the business meeting that's in the way it's structured right now, leaves people with a taste of their voice not being heard. It's just not working. I don't think we should go to an elected school committee, however. I think we should open up the process, be more participatory, make sure we're more accountable to the public. But an elected school committee didn't serve us in the past. An elected school committee has not served other cities and is not serving them currently. Mm-hmm. Reports show that the appointed school committee yield better performance in their district. And I think that if they are doing a better job, and I think they are, and we're doing a better job here in Boston, we should keep it because it's working. We've got a lot of changes to make.
Over the course of a campaign, of course, you're asked a million questions, but a lot of them, of course, relate to what happens in the future. Yet, in so doing and talking about them, sometimes there's the potential to kind of aggravate that guy on the 5th floor that's sitting there right now. Does that make it a little difficult to run? The fact that Mayor Menino, and you served as an appointee of his on the school committee, make you a little reluctant to kind of criticize or even be perceived to be critical?
Menino's a dear friend. The mayor and I have worked on a lot of things together in this city. He was at my wedding. He knows my wife, my child, Angela.
Which, incidentally, I understand you have another on the way.
Yeah, due in September. We're really excited. Another boy coming. So he's been there. He's been there for me. He's been very supportive. He's been there for the city. He's been very supportive. But Menino would be the first to say the job's not done. He'd be the first to say we've got a lot more to do. In fact, he said it in his last public address to the city, and he'll probably say it again as he's leaving office. Mm-hmm. And so I think we agree that there's a lot that needs to be done. He wants someone that really loves the city to do it. I think I'm that person. I will be committed and continue to move the city forward. And so in many ways, I think poking at him or criticizing him is not about the person. So we shouldn't make it personal. We should talk about what needs to be done. And there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that's left undone. And we have a strong foundation to build on, right? And so we should be proud of the work that he's done and talk about how we even get better.
Well, of course, when Mayor Menino was first elected, I remember the phrase, judge me by my record, my actions as it related to the schools. And little did he know, or perhaps he didn't know, what a challenge, a process that is. I know he's been working on that since. If John Barrows is elected, what will you say? What will be your, what would you like to be remembered by?
That is a great question. First time I was asked that question. But I don't think it's a single issue. I think as mayor, I'd like to have a scorecard. I'm going to propose a plan called Plan Boston. And it's similar kind of plan as Plan YC in New York. Plan Boston would have goals, and we would have benchmarks that we'd like to hit as a city. There'd be a comprehensive planning process to get to those goals and benchmarks. And we would look at it annually to make sure that we're hitting them. And I think if I'm not delivering, the city should know. And they shouldn't wait until I'm leaving office for that legacy. We should know immediately, and we should change course and make sure that we hit those goals together. So I'm all for accountability. I'm all for clarity in the kinds of goals we need and holding not only myself accountable for what I'm saying at the end of my tenure, but in the middle of it as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, one of the things, and just to put this on the table, because in the tragedy that happened on Marathon, I don't, everyone feels terrible about that, and that's citywide. But there's a lot of people in the community that say, hey, wait a minute, every day almost, there's people being shot in the streets. Every day there's people being killed. There's a lot of violence. And that this stuff, because lots of times it's going on in the minority community and the community of color, and it may get a small little item in the paper, but it certainly isn't being run every day for months on end. And no one is suggesting that what happened on the Marathon shouldn't have been covered extensively. But is that type of thing being overlooked? Are those kinds of tragedies not getting the attention that they deserve in this city, and the response from the police, from street workers, from whomever, ministers, you name it?
Well, what happened on the marathon with the marathon bombing was tragic. Needed the kind of exposure to get it. Needed the response we gave it. And in fact, I'm very proud to be a Bostonian, given the way that we responded immediately and then the way we responded in the subsequent days and months. The One Boston Fund is an amazing legacy and a testament to the kind of city we live in. But there's terror happening in different parts of the city,
Yes.
and for every person we lose in the city, we have failed to create a safe place for someone. And we need to take that and make sure that that's as important and that we're giving that the attention that it needs. And right now, I think because we've done a good job, people like to say, oh, it's not at the same rate. We're not killing as many people as we used to kill in 1991. Well, that's not what we should be saying. One life is too many, and we should make sure that we're building and creating a safer city for everyone. And I think it starts with building relationships and making sure that we have the relationships with young people on the streets, that we have relationships with our neighbors, and in the same way that we came together around the bombings, that we're coming together as a city and saying that we're not going to accept this, that people in our neighborhoods are feeling empowered to report crimes, that we're feeling empowered to say, not on my street, not on my block, and that the city's behind us as we say it, that we have the infrastructure and the resources.
And you've seen that in like Dudley Square?
It works. It works. That kind of coordination, that kind of ownership by the residents of the community, and that kind of partnership by police and city leadership works. That kind of coordination works. And so street workers need to feel like they are being supported by the agencies in the neighborhoods they're working. The faith-based community and the faith-based leaders need to come out and feel like that they have a place to engage and some partnerships around that engagement. That kind of coordination is important. But the people who need to feel most supported in this are the young people, that we're not targeting them, that we're not advocating that everyone is arrested, but that we're trying to give them a way to prevent being part of a crime or victim of a crime.
You think that's coming across?
Right now, I don't think it is. I think we are being too complacent. I think we have not responded in a way that Boston has responded in the past. We've done this in the past. We've been really good at it in the past, and we can do it again. And I think we need to call for that kind of...
Commissioner Ed Davis, would you bring him back? Would you keep him?
I'd love to have him. We've had a pretty good personal relationship, not because not only because I like him as a person, but because he's been responsive. When you call Commissioner Davis, he shows up to the community meetings. He's attentive. He listens. He shares information, and the department has reflected that kind of leadership. And so I've really appreciated what he's done as commissioner. So I'd love to have him as mayor.
Now, some have taken it. I'm thinking of Reverend Bruce Wall, who's actually a good friend of mine, have said we're not doing enough. His call was for a state of emergency. Do we need to bring more resources to bear? Is there something we're missing here?
I think we're not doing enough. I have to echo that. With every life that we lose, we're not doing enough. I think that's just the proof is in the outcome. I'm not sure. I think we need to first coordinate resources. right? We're not necessarily leveraging all of the resources because we have a lot of disorganization. When you have a young person in a school and the after-school program is not talking to the school, the court system is not talking to the school or talking to the after-school program, the church that they might belong to is not in the conversation. You have some disorganization around the young people that we're trying to nurture and care for, and that's problematic.
Whose fault is that, though? Is that is there some leadership lacking? And I'm not looking to point fingers here, but and how does Mayor Barrows change that?
Well, the first thing Mayor Barrows would do is he'd take responsibility and say, it's our collective responsibility, then therefore it's our collective faults. And I tried to do this at DSNI, really bring people together and create the kind of partnerships and coordination that we need to be a better community. And it works. And so as mayor, I'd call Boston to meet that objective again, to come back to the table and coordinate around some of these issues so that we can increase the quality of life. We've seen reports where if young people feel isolated, they feel more prone to be able to act out and actually be deviants in society. We need to remove that isolation. We need to make sure that they feel connected and feel ownership and feel responsible, right? And therefore accountable to their actions.
You got a great message there, and we've got just a few minutes, less than a minute here left. How is that message resonating with voters? How are you feeling about your campaign? How are you being received?
Well, the voters of Boston know that I'm about inclusion and full participation. They know I'm also about transparency and bringing people together. They know I believe in the residents of the city because that's what I've been doing for 13 years now as executive director of DSNI, working on affordable housing, working on health disparities, working on youth and youth issues, jobs, summer jobs, year-round jobs, education reform. Education is central to the work that we've done in our neighborhood. And I, as mayor, would continue to do that work. Check my track record. What I'm saying is not about what I would do sometime in the future. It's what I've been doing and having a lot of success in doing it. And as mayor, I would do it for a lot more people with a lot more opportunity to go deeper in the things that we care about.
Well, we want to wish you the best of luck, and I want to thank you so much again for coming in and joining us here. Again, John Barrows, one of the candidates running for mayor. There's 12 in total, and over the upcoming weeks, you'll meet the rest. John, enjoyed having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
It was a fun time. Thanks.
That's it for tonight on Talk the Neighborhoods. We'll be back next week at our same time. Until then, for the entire staff and crew here at BNN, I'm Joe Heisler. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.